The leftover meatloaf tasted like cardboard, but I was too tired to care. Another 16-hour shift as a paramedic will do that to you, pulling broken bodies out of twisted metal while listening to dispatch crackle through your radio like some demented dark angel. I'd seen 3 overdoses, 2 heart attacks, and 1 kid who'd fallen off his bike and scraped his knee but screamed like he was fading. Just another Tuesday in paradise. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Nicole walked through the door at 11:30, her heels clicking against our hardwood floors like a countdown timer. She didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge the plate I'd left warming in the oven, didn't even pet Buster, our golden retriever who'd been waiting by the door like a furry statue of loyalty. "Long day at the office?" I asked, trying to inject some warmth into my voice despite the ice-cold reception I'd grown accustomed to over the past 6 months. She finally looked up from her phone, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not just indifference, but active disgust. Like I was something she'd stepped in on the sidewalk. "Don't," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Just don't pretend you care about my day when you can't even be bothered to shower before dinner." I looked down at my uniform. Sure, it was wrinkled and probably smelled like antiseptic and other people's emergencies, but I'd come straight home to see her, to try to salvage whatever was left of our marriage. "I wanted to see you," I said. "I thought maybe we could talk." That's when she laughed. Not a warm laugh, not even a bitter one, but something cold and calculating that made my stomach clench. "Talk? About what, Grant? About how you're a 39-year-old paramedic who still thinks he's going to save the world? About how you track mud through my house and leave your dirty uniforms on my clean floors?" My house. My clean floors. When had everything become hers? I stood up, moved toward her thinking maybe if I could just touch her face, remind her of who we used to be together. But when I leaned in for a kiss, she shoved me back so hard I stumbled. "You disgust me," she spat. "I'd rather kiss our dog than you." The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Buster whined softly, as if he understood he'd just been used as a weapon against me. I stared at her for a long moment. This woman I'd loved for 12 years, married for 8, and realized I was looking at a stranger. Worse than a stranger, an enemy. "You know what, Nicole? You're right." I walked upstairs, threw some clothes into my old duffel bag from my army days, grabbed my toothbrush, and my backup uniform. When I came back down, she was already on her phone, probably texting whoever had been keeping her at the office until midnight, 3 nights a week. "Come on, Buster," I called. The dog looked between us, confused, then trotted over to my side. At least someone in this house still had loyalty. "Where are you going?" Nicole asked, not looking up from her screen. "Somewhere I'm wanted," I replied, opening the front door. "Don't wait up." I loaded Buster into my pickup truck and backed out of our driveway on Cedar Drive, watching our house, her house, shrink in my rearview mirror. The rain had started, turning the streetlights into blurry halos, and I realized I had nowhere to go. But anywhere was better than staying in a place where I was treated like garbage. I ended up at the Rusty Anchor, the dive bar where my boxing coach Mick Dugan held court most nights. The place smelled like stale beer and broken dreams, but at least nobody there looked at me like I was something they'd scraped off their shoe. "Well, well," Mick said as I walked in, Buster padding beside me. "Look what the rain washed in. Rough night, Fowler?" Mick was 60-something, built like a fire hydrant, with hands that had seen too many fights and eyes that had seen too much of everything else. He owned the bar and ran the boxing gym in the back room, training guys like me who needed somewhere to hit things legally. "My wife just told me she'd rather kiss my dog than me," I said, sliding onto a bar stool. "Smart woman," Mick replied, pulling a beer from the cooler. "Dogs are loyal. Can't say the same about most people these days." I spent the night in the spare room above the gym, listening to Buster snore and trying to figure out where my marriage had gone wrong. When had Nicole started looking at me like I was beneath her? When had I become the enemy instead of the man she'd promised to love in sickness and in health? The next morning, I drove back to the house to grab more clothes while Nicole was at work. That's when I found the evidence that would change everything. Her laptop was open on the kitchen counter, password protected as always. But Nicole had never been as smart as she thought she was. Her password was still HR Queen 2019, the year she'd gotten promoted to Human Resources Manager at Hartwell Industries. I shouldn't have looked. Part of me knew that whatever I found would destroy the last shred of hope I had for our marriage. But I looked anyway. The email thread was titled, "Tonight," and the conversation made my stomach turn. Chad: "Can't wait to see you, same place?" Nicole: "Of course. Grant's working late again. The idiot has no idea." Chad: "What if he finds out?" Nicole: "He won't. He's too stupid and too tired to notice anything. Besides, I'm done pretending I care about this marriage. You're everything he's not. Successful, ambitious, going places." Chad: "When are you going to tell him?" Nicole: "Soon. I want to make sure my promotion goes through first. Can't have any workplace drama affecting my career." I scrolled through months of messages, each one a knife twist in my gut. Nicole and Chad Wexler, her boss, the HR director at Hartwell Industries. They'd been meeting at the Sunset Motel on Route 9, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. But the worst part wasn't the affair itself. It was how they talked about me. Nicole: "He came home today trying to be romantic. It was pathetic, like watching a puppy beg for scraps." Chad: "You deserve so much better, a real man who can provide for you." Nicole: "I know. I can't wait to be done with him. The house will sell for enough to give me a fresh start, and his paramedic salary won't even cover decent alimony." Chad: "My divorce should be final by Christmas. We can start our new life together." Nicole: "Perfect. I'll string Grant along until then. He's too pathetic to leave me first. I printed everything. Every email, every text message backup, every hotel receipt I found in her purse. Then I called in sick to work and drove to the Sunset Motel. Sure enough, there was Nicole's silver BMW parked next to a black Mercedes with the license plate Harking 1. Real subtle, Chad. I sat in my truck for 2 hours, watching, planning. When they finally came out, Nicole was laughing at something Chad had said, her hand on his chest, like she was a teenager again. She looked happier than I'd seen her in months. That's when I made my decision. If Nicole wanted to play games, I'd show her how the game was really played. I waited until they drove off, then walked over to Chad's Mercedes. The keys to my old life were in my pocket, house key, mailbox key, and most importantly, the key to Nicole's gym locker where she kept her spare car key. But I didn't need to break anything. I just needed to send a message. I pulled out a black Sharpie and wrote across his windshield, "House of Cards falls fast. Enjoy the ride, Romeo." Then I keyed both sides of his precious Mercedes, long, deep scratches that would cost thousands to repair. As I walked back to my truck, I noticed the security camera pointed at the parking lot. For a second, I wondered if it had caught me. Then I realized I didn't care. Let them figure it out. The next few weeks were like watching a slow-motion car crash from the inside. Nicole's contempt for me grew bolder, more vicious. She stopped pretending to work late and started bringing Chad to work events that I wasn't invited to. She bought new clothes, expensive perfume, and started talking about upgrading everything in our life, starting with me. "You know, Grant," she said one morning as I was getting ready for my shift, "I've been thinking about our future." "Our future?" I asked, though I already knew where this was going. "Well, my future, really. I'm moving up in the world, and I need a partner who can keep up, someone with ambition." I looked at her in the bathroom mirror, applying makeup like she was preparing for a photo shoot instead of a day at the office. "Someone like Chad Wexler?" She froze, mascara wand halfway to her eyelashes. What did you say? I said someone like Chad Wexler, your boss. Your married boss who drives the black Mercedes and takes you to the Sunset Motel twice a week. The color drained from her face, but she recovered quickly. Nicole had always been good at lying. I don't know what you're talking about. Room 237, usually around lunchtime, sometimes after work. You've been meeting him there for 4 months. She turned to face me, and for a moment I saw panic in her eyes. Then it was replaced by something worse. Defiance. So what if I have been? What are you going to do about it? I'm going to destroy you, I said quietly. She laughed. You? You're going to destroy me? Grant, you drive a 10-year-old pickup truck and live paycheck to paycheck. I make twice what you make, I have connections you can't even imagine, and I'm about to get promoted again. What exactly do you think you can do to me? I smiled. The same smile I used when I was about to deliver bad news to a patient's family. Calm, professional, final. You'll find out. That afternoon, I met with Trevor Hastings, a private investigator who'd helped some of the guys at the station with divorce cases. Trevor was a nervous, talkative guy who looked like an accountant but had the instincts of a hound. Cheating spouse? He asked, barely looking up from his computer. Cheating spouse who thinks she's smarter than everyone else. Those are my favorite kind, Trevor said, finally making eye contact. They always leave the best evidence. I gave him everything I had, the emails, the hotel receipts, the photos I'd taken of Nicole and Chad together. Within a week, Trevor had built a case that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. Your wife and her boss have been sloppy, he said, sliding a thick manila envelope across his desk. Hotel records, credit card statements, text messages, photos, and here's the kicker. They've been using company resources for their affair. Company car, company credit card for the hotel rooms, even company time. That's grounds for termination and possibly criminal charges for misuse of corporate funds. What about Chad's wife? Trevor grinned. Margaret Wexler is a family law attorney. She's going to take him for everything he's worth, and she's going to enjoy doing it. How long before this all comes out? That depends on you. I can have copies of everything delivered to HR, Margaret Wexler, and your wife's parents by tomorrow morning. Or we can wait and let them dig themselves deeper. I thought about Nicole's smug face that morning, her certainty that I was too weak and too stupid to fight back. Tomorrow morning, I said. I was on shift when the bombs started going off. My phone buzzed constantly with calls from Nicole, but I ignored them all. Around noon, Trevor called. It's done, he said. HR got their package at 9 a.m. Margaret Wexler got hers at 9:15. Your wife's parents got theirs at 9:30. And? Chad Wexler was suspended pending investigation by 10 a.m. Your wife was called into a meeting with HR and legal at 10:30. Margaret Wexler filed for divorce at 11 and sent copies of everything to the local newspaper's gossip columnist. I felt a warm glow of satisfaction spread through my chest. What about Nicole? She's been trying to call you for 3 hours. Also, her best friend Samantha Greer from HR called me asking if she could buy copies of the photos. Apparently, she wants to make sure they get distributed properly around the office. That surprised me. Sam had been Nicole's closest friend for years. Why would she do that? I asked her the same thing. She said, and I quote, Nicole thinks she's better than everyone else. It's time someone knocked her down a few pegs. When I got home that night, Nicole was waiting for me in the living room. Her eyes were red from crying, her perfect makeup smeared, and she looked smaller somehow, like she'd been deflated. How could you do this to me? She asked. Do what? Tell the truth? You've ruined my life. My career is over, my parents won't speak to me, and everyone at work is laughing at me. I sat down across from her, Buster settling at my feet. You ruined your own life, Nicole. I just made sure everyone knew about it. Chad and I love each other. Chad loves the idea of you, but when his wife takes half of everything he owns and he loses his job, Let's see how much he loves you then. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. You're not the man I married. No, I agreed. The man you married was weak. He would have let you walk all over him and then thanked you for it. But that man is gone. What do you want? I want a divorce. I want the house. I want alimony. And I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You can't have the house. I put more money into it than you did. Actually, I can. See, when you used your company credit card to pay for hotel rooms, you committed fraud. When you used company time to conduct your affair, you violated your employment contract. And when you did all of this while planning to divorce me and take half of everything I owned, you committed adultery with intent to defraud. Nicole's face went white. You can't prove that. I pulled out a folder full of documents. Trevor is very thorough. Every email where you and Chad discussed your plans for my money. Every text message where you laughed about stringing me along. Every hotel receipt showing you used company funds for personal use. I'll fight you. With what money? You're about to be fired, and no other company is going to hire you after this scandal hits the papers. Chad's wife is a lawyer, but she's going to be busy destroying Chad. Who's going to represent you? For the first time since I'd known her, Nicole had nothing to say. 2 weeks later, Nicole was officially fired from Hartwell Industries. Chad had already been terminated and was facing criminal charges for embezzlement. The local paper had run a story about the HR romance scandal that had cost 2 executives their jobs and marriages. I should have felt satisfied, but I wasn't done yet. Sam Greer called me on a Friday night, her voice slurred with wine and spite. Grant, it's Sam. I think we should meet. Why? Because there's more to this story than you know. Nicole isn't the only one who's been playing games. We met at the Rusty Anchor, where Mick served Sam coffee, and gave me a look that said he didn't approve of whatever was happening, but wouldn't interfere. You want to know why I helped you destroy Nicole? Sam asked. I assumed you were just tired of her attitude. Sam laughed bitterly. Oh, I was. But it was more than that. See, 3 years ago, when the HR manager position opened up, I applied for it too. I had more experience, better qualifications, and I'd been with the company longer. But Nicole got the job. Nicole got the job because she was sleeping with the hiring manager. Different guy, but same playbook. She's been screwing her way up the corporate ladder for years. I stared at her. Why didn't you say anything before? Because I was waiting for the right moment. When she started the thing with Chad, I knew she was getting sloppy. I knew she'd eventually give me enough rope to hang her with. So you used me. We used each other. You wanted revenge, I wanted justice. Sometimes they're the same thing. Sam reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. This has everything. Every affair, every promotion she didn't earn, every lie she told to get ahead. I've been collecting evidence for 3 years. What do you want me to do with it? Nothing. It's insurance. In case Nicole tries to make a comeback, in case she tries to blame you for everything that happened. This proves she's been a fraud from the beginning. I took the flash drive, feeling its weight like a loaded gun. There's something else, Sam said. Nicole's been telling people that you abused her, that you threatened her, that you're dangerous. That's not true. I know it's not true, but she's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. She's trying to get a restraining order against you. Based on what? Based on lies. But lies can be very convincing when they're told by a pretty woman who's afraid for her safety. I felt the old anger rising again, hot and sharp. What do you suggest I do about it? Fight fire with fire. Nicole wants to play victim? Show everyone what kind of victim she really is. The neighborhood block party was Nicole's idea, believe it or not. She'd convinced the Cedar Drive Homeowners Association that we needed a community healing event, after all the negative publicity our street had received. What she really wanted was a chance to play the wronged wife in front of all our neighbors. I almost didn't go, but Mick convinced me that hiding would just make me look guilty. You want people to think you're ashamed? He asked. You want them to think maybe Nicole's telling the truth about you being dangerous? So I went. I brought Buster, I brought a folding chair, and I brought the flash drive Sam had given me. Nicole was holding court near the food table, surrounded by sympathetic neighbors who were eating up her story about her abusive husband and her mistake with Chad that had cost her everything. I just want to move on with my life, she was saying as I walked up. But Grant won't let me. He's been stalking me, threatening me. I'm afraid of what he might do. Mrs. Patterson from next door patted Nicole's hand. Have you called the police, dear? I filed for a restraining order, but the system is so slow, and Grant knows so many people in emergency services. I'm not sure they'd believe me over him. That's when I spoke up. You're right, Nicole. They probably wouldn't believe you. The crowd turned to look at me, and I saw fear flicker across Nicole's face before she composed herself. Grant, she said, her voice shaking just enough to sound vulnerable. Please don't make a scene. I'm not making a scene, I'm just wondering why you're telling people I threatened you when we both know that's not true. You keyed Chad's car. I did, and I'm not sorry about it. But I never threatened you, and I never laid a hand on you. The only person who got physical in our marriage was you, when you shoved me that night in the kitchen. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't the story Nicole had been telling. That's not how it happened, Nicole said, but her voice was less steady now. Really? Because I have security camera footage from our front door that shows me leaving the house with my bag and my dog after you assaulted me. Want to watch it together? I pulled out my phone, and Nicole's face went pale. You're lying. I'm done lying, Nicole. That was always your specialty. I looked around at the crowd of neighbors, people I'd lived next to for 8 years, people who'd watched our marriage from a distance and were now getting a front row seat to its destruction. You want to know what really happened? Nicole's been cheating on me for months with her married boss. When I found out, I gathered evidence and reported it to their company's HR department. They were both fired for using company resources to conduct their affair. Now Nicole's trying to rewrite history to make herself look like the victim instead of the woman who destroyed 2 marriages for a promotion that she didn't even get. That's enough, Nicole snapped, her mask finally slipping. You have no right to humiliate me like this. I have every right. You humiliated me for months, made me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I was beneath you. You used me while you were planning your exit strategy with another man. You told him I was too stupid to figure out what you were doing. The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. But here's the thing, Nicole. I'm not stupid. I'm thorough. I'm patient. And I'm very, very good at my job, which is helping people in crisis situations. Turns out, those skills are also useful for destroying people who think they're untouchable. Nicole looked around desperately, realizing she'd lost the crowd. You don't understand. Grant's not who you think he is. He's been planning this, manipulating everything. You're right, I said. I have been planning this. Ever since I found out you were cheating, I've been planning exactly how to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I held up the flash drive Sam had given me. This has 3 years' worth of evidence about Nicole's affairs, her lies, her fraudulent behavior at work. Every promotion she didn't earn, every person she stepped on to get ahead, every marriage she helped destroy. Where did you get that? Nicole whispered. From someone who's been watching you even longer than I have. Someone who's been waiting for the right moment to expose you. I looked directly at Sam, who was standing at the edge of the crowd with a small smile on her face. Sam? Nicole turned to her best friend, confusion and betrayal warring in her expression. Hello, Nicole, Sam said, stepping forward. Enjoying the party? You did this? You helped him? I helped Justice. You've been screwing people over for years, Nicole, literally and figuratively. It was time someone returned the favor. Nicole looked back and forth between us, and I could see the exact moment when she realized she'd been completely outmaneuvered. You planned this together, she said. No, I replied. We just both wanted the same thing, for you to face consequences for your actions. Nicole's composure finally cracked completely. You bastards! You think you've won? You think you've destroyed me? I'll come back from this. You'll what? I interrupted. Get another job in HR? With your reputation? Start another relationship? With what man wants to date a woman who's famous for cheating? Move to another city? With what money? The crowd was watching this like a tennis match, heads turning back and forth between us. Face it, Nicole. You gambled everything on a relationship with a man who was using you just like you were using me. The difference is, when it all fell apart, I had a plan, and you had nothing but lies. Nicole stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something break behind her eyes. I hate you, she whispered. I know, I said, but I don't care anymore. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking on the asphalt like a countdown timer running out. The crowd watched her go, then turned back to me with expressions ranging from shock to admiration to fear. Well, said Mr. Johnson from 3 houses down, I guess that's the end of that. But it wasn't the end. Not quite yet. Chad Wexler was sentenced to 6 months in jail and ordered to pay restitution to Hartwell Industries. His wife Margaret took everything else in the divorce, the house, the cars, the boat, and half his retirement fund. Nicole moved back in with her parents in Ohio. She tried to get a job in HR at several companies, but word had gotten around. The last I heard, she was working as a receptionist at a dental office and living in a studio apartment above a pizza place. Sam got promoted to HR director at Hartwell Industries. She sent me a bottle of expensive whiskey with a note that said, "Thanks for the partnership." I kept the house on Cedar Drive. The neighbors treated me differently now, with a mixture of respect and wariness that I found I liked. They knew I wasn't someone to be underestimated anymore. Mick offered me a job training other guys at his gym, guys going through divorces or custody battles, or just needing somewhere to hit things legally. I kept my paramedic job, but the extra income was nice. Buster got a new bed, new toys, and all the bacon treats he could eat. He was the only one in the whole mess who'd stayed loyal from beginning to end. But the real victory wasn't the money or the house or even the satisfaction of watching Nicole's world crumble. The real victory was looking in the mirror and seeing someone I respected again. Someone who didn't let people walk all over him. Someone who understood that sometimes being the good guy means being the guy who fights back. Nicole had been right about one thing. I wasn't the man she'd married anymore. The man she'd married would have taken her abuse, believed her lies, and probably ended up paying her alimony while she started her new life with Chad. But that man was gone. In his place was someone harder, smarter, and a lot less forgiving. Someone who understood that in a world full of people like Nicole and Chad, you either learn to play the game or you get played. I chose to play, and I won. 3 months after the block party, I got a call from Trevor, the private investigator. "You might want to see this," he said, sliding a newspaper across the table at our meeting. The headline read, "Former HR executive arrested for insurance fraud." "Nicole?" I asked. "Nicole. Apparently she filed a false claim saying you damaged her car during your abusive relationship. The insurance company investigated and found out she'd actually damaged it herself to try to get money." I laughed, a sound that had more satisfaction than humor in it. "How much trouble is she in?" "Fraud charges, perjury for lying on the police report, and the insurance company is suing her for the money they paid out plus damages. She's looking at possible jail time and definitely financial ruin." "And this is all public record?" "Very public. The story's been picked up by 3 newspapers and 2 local TV stations. Turns out, people love a good cheating wife gets comeuppance story." I folded the newspaper and put it in my jacket pocket, not because I wanted to keep it as a trophy, but because I wanted to remember this moment, the moment when I realized that sometimes, if you're patient enough, people destroy themselves. Nicole had been so desperate to paint herself as the victim that she'd committed actual crimes to support her lies. and now those lies had finally caught up with her. I drove home to Cedar Drive, to the house that was now fully mine, where Buster was waiting by the door and the neighbors nodded respectfully when they saw me. I'd started from nothing, a broken man whose wife had crushed his spirit and made him feel worthless. But I'd rebuilt myself into someone stronger, someone who didn't just survive betrayal, but who turned it into victory. Nicole had wanted to destroy me and start a new life. Instead, she'd destroyed herself and given me a new life. The irony was so perfect it almost felt like justice. Almost. Because real justice would have been Nicole learning from her mistakes, becoming a better person, finding genuine happiness with someone who deserved her best self. But Nicole had never been interested in becoming better. She'd only been interested in having more. More money, more status, more power, more of everything she thought would make her happy. And in the end, her greed had cost her everything. I poured myself a glass of the whiskey Sam had sent me, sat on my back porch with Buster at my feet, and watched the sun set over my neighborhood. Tomorrow I'd go back to work, saving lives and helping people in their worst moments. But tonight, I was going to enjoy the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. Nicole had taught me an important lesson. Sometimes, the people who claim to love you are actually your worst enemies. But she'd also taught me something else. When you know who you really are, no one can destroy you but yourself. I'd chosen not to destroy myself. I'd chosen to fight back, to be smart, to be patient, and to be ruthless when necessary. And I'd won.